You know that feeling. It's a quiet morning. Maybe you're at the kitchen table with your coffee or sitting in your favorite chair by the window. Your phone buzzes. You pick it up and you see it's a message from your son or your daughter. For just a second, your heart lifts a little. And then you read it. Nothing hateful. Nothing cruel. Nothing you could point to and say, "That was wrong." But you set the phone down and something feels off. You can't quite name it. You don't want to make a big deal out of it. So you sit with that feeling, alone, and wonder if maybe you're just being too sensitive. I've been a psychologist for over 40 years. I've sat across from thousands of parents, men and women your age, who described that exact moment. That quiet sting that no one else could see. And almost none of them could name why a text from their own child left them feeling invisible. Today, I'm going to name it for you. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 specific text messages that look completely harmless on the surface, but that carry a quiet message of disrespect underneath the words. A message that, when it comes again and again, chips away at something precious. Your sense of worth as a parent, as a person. And I'm going to give you the tools to respond, not with anger, not with silence, but with the dignity you have always deserved. Because here's what I want you to understand before we begin. You are not too sensitive. You are not imagining it. And you are not a burden for wanting to feel respected by the people you love most. Let's begin. Before we get to the 5 messages, I want to take just a moment to explain something important. Text messages are not the same as a phone call. They're not the same as a conversation at the dinner table. When someone speaks to you in person, you can hear the warmth in their voice or the coldness. You can see their eyes. You can feel whether they're truly present with you or somewhere far away in their mind. Text strips all of that away. What you're left with is bare words on a screen. And when those words are ambiguous, when the tone is missing, you are left to fill in the blank. And if you've been feeling a slow drift from your adult child, if you've been feeling less and less connected, your heart tends to fill in that blank with the thing it fears most. That's not weakness. That's human. Now here's something else I want you to understand. Many adult children who send these messages are not sitting there thinking, "How can I make my mother feel small today?" Most of them are not even aware of what they're doing. They're busy. They're distracted. They've never been taught what thoughtful communication actually looks like. But here is one of the most important things I have learned in 4 decades of psychology. Intent does not erase impact. It doesn't matter if your child meant to hurt you. What matters is how it lands. What matters is what it does to you, quietly, over time. And one more thing before we dive in. I want to introduce you to a concept called micro-invalidation. It's a term psychologists use to describe small, seemingly innocent interactions that communicate to a person, "Your feelings don't quite matter here. Your needs are a little too much. You are slightly less than." No single micro-invalidation destroys a relationship. But over months, over years, they accumulate. They build a wall, one quiet text at a time. You're about to learn exactly what those texts look like. Message number 1. K. Let's start with the shortest message on our list. One single letter. K. Now, before you laugh, I want you to think about the last time you sent your son or daughter something that mattered to you. Maybe you shared a piece of news. Maybe you told them about a doctor's appointment that had been worrying you. Maybe you simply said, "I was thinking about you today." And they wrote back, K. That one letter. Nothing else. On the surface, it's just an abbreviation. Just a quick reply from a busy person. What's the big deal? Here's the big deal. When you send someone a message that carries even a small piece of your heart, and they respond with a single keystroke, what they are communicating, consciously or not, is this. Your message was not worth my time. I processed it and moved on. In your generation, if someone said something meaningful to you and you replied with a shrug and turned away, everyone in the room would know that was rude. Everyone would feel the coldness of it. But in a text thread, that shrug gets disguised as just being brief. Now, Is a one-word reply always disrespect? Of course not. If you ask your daughter, "Did you get my email?" and she says, "Yep," that's fine. Context matters. What I'm talking about is a pattern. When your messages about your health, your feelings, your life consistently receive a single cold word in return, that pattern is telling you something about how much space you're being given in your child's emotional world. And there's a term for this in psychology: stonewalling via text. It's a form of passive withdrawal. The person isn't slamming a door. They're simply not opening one. And it leaves you standing in the hallway, wondering if you even knocked loud enough. Here's what a caring response actually looks like, even from a genuinely busy person. "Got it, Mom. Talk tonight. Love you." That takes 11 seconds to type. 11 seconds says, "I see you. You matter." So how do you respond when this pattern shows up? Not with accusation, not with a paragraph of frustration, but with calm, clear honesty. Something like this: "Hey, I've noticed that when I share something personal with you, I sometimes get a one-word reply. I know you're busy, and I'm not asking for an essay, but a few extra words go a long way for me. It helps me feel like you're actually there." That's it. Simple, direct, dignified. Message number 2. I already told you that, Mom/Dad. This one is trickier, because it often comes wrapped in a smile, sometimes even a laugh. It sounds affectionate almost, like the gentle ribbing between people who know each other well. But let me tell you what I hear when a patient sits in my office and tells me their adult child said this to them. I hear shame. Quiet, grinding, accumulating shame. Because what "I already told you that" communicates, especially when said repeatedly, especially in a tone of mild impatience, is this: your memory is slipping. You can't keep up. I have to repeat myself because of you. Now maybe your child did already mention something and you genuinely forgot. That happens to all of us, at every age. But there is a profound difference between "Oh right, sorry, I think I missed that, let me explain again," and "I already told you that." One is a partner helping you stay connected. The other is a parent correcting a child. And when the roles in a family quietly reverse, when your adult child begins to position themselves as the competent one and you as the one who needs managing, something deeply painful begins to happen. You start to go quiet. You stop asking questions, not because you don't have them, but because you don't want to be corrected again. You don't want to feel like a burden. You don't want to see that flicker of impatience in their next message. And when you go quiet, the relationship narrows. The connection you long for gets thinner and thinner until one day you realize you're not really talking anymore. You're performing. Saying just enough to keep the peace, hiding the rest. This is one of the most painful dynamics I see in families, and it often begins with something as small as "I already told you that." There's also something deeper at work here: internalized ageism. When your adult child subtly reinforces the idea that your mind is less reliable, even with the best of intentions, and you begin to believe it, you are absorbing a damaging story about yourself. A story that isn't necessarily true and that you did not write. Here's how you can respond with dignity. I hear you, and I'd appreciate it if, when you remind me of something, it didn't come with a tone that makes me feel forgetful or behind. I'm not asking for perfection, just a little patience. You are allowed to say that. You have always been allowed to say that. Message number 3, we'll see. I'll try to make it. Maybe, depending on how things go. This is the one that I find causes the deepest, most silent grief. Because unlike a K or a correction, this one comes with hope. It never quite closes the door. It never says no. And so, you're left waiting. Planning around a maybe. Trying not to get your hopes up while quietly, helplessly hoping anyway. Your birthday. A holiday dinner. A small ceremony that matters to you. And your son or daughter writes back, I'll try to make it. We'll see how things look that week. Hopefully, depending on how the schedule lands. Let me be very direct with you about what's actually happening in these messages. When someone is committed to being somewhere, they say so. I'll be there. Even I can't make it but let's do dinner that Saturday. Just us. That's a real answer. That's someone who values you enough to give you certainty or to offer something in return. We'll see is neither. It's a holding pattern. And the person who holds the yes or no, your child, holds all the power in that moment, while you hold all the uncertainty. In psychology, we talk about the damage of chronic ambiguity in close relationships. When you can never quite depend on someone, when their presence is always provisional, your nervous system learns to expect disappointment while still hoping to be wrong. That's an exhausting place to live. And for many of you watching this, there's an additional layer of pain that goes beyond the inconvenience. You come from a generation where showing up was sacred, where you rearranged your world to be at your child's school play, their first game, their graduation, where if someone needed you, you came. Not because it was convenient, but because that's what love looked like. And when your child treats your moments as optional, when your birthday dinner is a maybe, it doesn't just feel like a scheduling conflict. It feels like a rejection of everything you believed love was supposed to mean. You are not being dramatic. You are grieving something real. Here's how to respond firmly and without cruelty. I need a real answer so I can plan. I understand if you can't come. A no I can make peace with. But the uncertainty is genuinely hard for me. Please give me something solid. That is not demanding. That is not manipulative. That is one adult asking another adult for basic respect. Message number 4. Have you tried therapy? You should really talk to someone about that. This one requires me to be very careful because I want to say something that might surprise you. Therapy is valuable. I am a psychologist. I have spent 40 years believing in the power of professional support. There is nothing wrong with therapy, and there is nothing wrong with an adult child lovingly suggesting it to a parent who is struggling. But there is a world of difference between, Mom, I love you, and I want you to have real support. Have you ever thought about talking to someone and using those same words as a way to exit a conversation you don't want to have? And that second use, which is far more common than most people realize, is what I want to talk about today. Here's how it typically goes. You reach out to your adult child. You share something painful, loneliness, worry, a fear about your health, a sadness you've been carrying. And instead of listening, instead of saying, tell me more, or, that sounds really hard, they write back, have you tried talking to a therapist about this? And just like that, the conversation is over. They've handed you off to a professional. They've signaled that your emotional needs exceed what they're willing to offer. And they've done it in a way that sounds responsible, even compassionate. But here's what they've actually communicated. Your feelings are too much for me. This is a you problem, not an us problem. I am not available for this. And when a parent who is simply lonely, simply missing their child, simply afraid, hears that their own longing needs to be managed by a professional, it is profoundly isolating. Here's something I tell parents in my practice, and I want to say it directly to you now. You are not asking your adult child to be your therapist. You are asking them to be your child, to listen, to be present, to say, I hear you. Those are not clinical skills. They are human ones. There's a name for what your child may be doing, perhaps without realizing it. It's called therapy speak deflection. Many younger generations have learned the language of mental health, and that's genuinely wonderful. But sometimes that language gets used as a shield, a way to sound enlightened while actually stepping back from the relationship. If this has happened to you, here is what you might say. I'm not asking you to fix me or be my therapist. I'm asking you to be my daughter, my son, for 5 minutes. To listen. That's all. Can you do that? Simple. Clear. Human. Message number 5. I've just been really busy lately. We've arrived at the last message on our list. And in some ways, it is the most painful one of all. Because there is nothing in those words that sounds unkind. There is no dismissal, no correction, no therapy speak. Just a fact. Life has been full. I've been occupied. I'm sorry. And yet, When you reach out to your adult child, when you find the courage to say, "I miss you," or "I've been thinking about you, I haven't heard your voice in a while," and the reply that comes back is simply, "I've just been so busy." No, "I miss you too." No, "Let's find a time this week." No acknowledgement that you said you missed them. Just a report on their schedule. What does that feel like? I'll tell you what it feels like, based on decades of sitting with parents who described this exact exchange to me. It feels like you extended your hand, and they looked at it, and kept walking. Busy has become the great modern shield. Everyone is busy. The world moves faster than it ever has. Your children are managing careers, children of their own, finances, health, a relentless stream of obligations. I understand that. You understand that. But here is what I want you to hold on to. Reaching out to a parent, sending a text that says, "I miss you too, let's talk soon," takes 30 seconds. Not 30 minutes. 30 seconds. When busy is consistently the answer to your longing, it is communicating a priority. It is saying, in the list of things that needed my attention today, reaching back to you was not on it. And for so many of you watching this right now, this message arrives at a particularly tender time in life. Maybe your home is quieter than it used to be. Maybe you've lost friends, or a spouse, or the daily structure of a job that gave your days shape. Maybe you're navigating health concerns that you haven't quite told anyone about yet because you don't want to worry them. In that context, "I've just been really busy" does not land as an explanation. It lands like a door quietly closing. Research on loneliness in adults over 60 is unambiguous and sobering. Adult children are one of the most significant factors in an older parent's emotional well-being. Not the only factor, but a powerful one. The frequency and quality of contact with your children can affect your health, your cognitive function, even how long you live. So this is not a small thing. This is not you being needy. Here is how you might respond, gently but honestly. "I know life is full, and I'm not asking for hours. I'm asking for 5 minutes. But I want to be honest with you. When I say I miss you and hear only that you've been busy, I feel like my missing you doesn't quite matter. I know that's probably not what you mean. But that's how it lands for me. I just wanted you to know." That is honesty. That is courage. And that is love. Not just for your child, but for yourself. Before we close, I want to say something important, something I say to every parent I work with, because I think it matters deeply. Naming these patterns is not the same as declaring war on your child. Understanding that a text message was hurtful is not the same as calling your son or daughter a bad person. Most adult children who send these messages are not doing so with malice. They are doing so on autopilot, caught up in the current of a busy life, defaulting to communication habits they've never been asked to examine. Some of them were never taught what emotionally present communication looks like. Some of them are carrying their own stress, their own fears, their own unresolved things, and they are leaking that onto the relationship in ways they don't fully see. None of that makes it acceptable, but it does make it workable. Because here's what I've seen happen, again and again, when a parent finds the courage to name what they're feeling, not with anger, not with a guilt trip, but with calm and honest clarity. The adult child pauses. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, they say, "I didn't realize I was doing that. I'm sorry." Real relationships can handle honesty. And if your relationship with your adult child cannot handle you saying, "This is how I feel," then that is important information too. You can love your child fiercely and still hold a standard for how you expect to be treated. Those two things are not in conflict. As we close today, I want to leave you with 3 principles. Not scripts. Not rules. Principles. Things you can carry with you into every conversation, digital or otherwise. Principle 1. Name the feeling, not the crime. There's a profound difference between "you never call me" and "when I don't hear from you for a long time, I feel forgotten." The first is an accusation. The second is an invitation. One puts your child on the defensive. The other opens a door. Lead with how you feel, not with what they did wrong. And you'll find the conversation goes somewhere real far more often. Principle 2. Set a standard, not a demand. You are allowed to tell your adult child what you need, not as an ultimatum, not as a threat, but as a clear, honest statement of what a good relationship looks like to you. Here's what matters to me and how we stay connected. That is not controlling. That is communicating. And it gives your child a chance to actually meet you, if they choose to. Principle 3. Know when to take it off the screen. Some conversations simply cannot happen over text. If something important is unresolved between you and your adult child, if a pattern has been building for months and you need it to change, pick up the phone. Ask to meet for coffee. Some things need a voice, a face, a presence. Text is for logistics. Love, grief, honesty. Those deserve more than a thread. We've covered a lot of ground today. 5 messages that look harmless, that sound normal, that get dismissed as nothing, but that, over time, quietly communicate. You matter a little less than you should. And I want you to hear me clearly as we close. You are not too sensitive for noticing this. You are not overreacting for feeling hurt by it. You are not a burden for wanting your child to be present with you. You are a parent. You have loved someone for decades, through sleepless nights and scraped knees and first heartbreaks and graduations and everything in between. You have earned the right to say, I deserve to be spoken to with care. Not perfectly, not constantly, but with care. If any of the 5 messages we talked about today felt familiar to you, if you recognized yourself in one of these moments, I'd love to know. Leave it in the comments below. Tell me which one hit closest to home, because I promise you, you will not be alone down there. There are thousands of parents watching this video right now who felt exactly what you felt. And that shared experience, that recognition that you are not imagining it, can be the beginning of something important. Next week, I'll be talking about what to do when your adult child shuts the conversation down entirely, the silence that isn't peaceful, and how to reach someone you love without losing yourself in the process. Until then, take care of yourself. Be gentle with yourself. And remember, you are not at the end of anything. You are still here, still reaching, still loving. And that is one of the most courageous things a human being can do. Take care.